Hi there guys, my name is Cadence and thank you so much for checking out this bullet journal video. I am very excited to be starting planning for 2025 and setting up all the spreads I will need throughout the year. This will be my 5th year of bullet journaling, which is crazy and kind of scary. I don't know where the time's gone. But you will notice that I've gone for a square journal this year, and this is the first time I've ever tried this, so I am looking forward to experimenting with some different layouts. This one is an arch and olive journal, and I haven't used them for a few years now as I've been using notebook therapy, which I do love, but they don't have a square journal and I really wanted a bit of a change this year. Archer and Olive are very good, high quality products, but they're also very expensive to ship over to the UK. But there were a few UK sellers that did have new stock in, so that worked out perfectly for me this year. This one is vegan leather, which I'm actually not too much of a fan of because it marks and gets damaged really easily. I do usually try to get the fabric or linen ones, but the square designs were quite limited. But I do really love the colour and the design on the front of this one. I will just have to try and be very careful with it. Okay, so my theme this year is very green and naturey and botanical-ish, and I'll talk about it a bit later, but it's kind of centered around a washi and sticker set I got from Notebook Therapy, which I absolutely fell in love with. But this is the first page of the journal, which I often avoid because of the way it's stuck to the rest of the binding. It often doesn't lie as flat, but I'm using 2 pages for my front cover, and this one will have a cutout to reveal the page underneath, and I feel like it's a good way of using a page that might otherwise be wasted. So I'm using 2 different green Tombow pens to draw this vine wreath. The more vibrant of the 2 has slightly larger, more pointed leaves, and the more greyish tone has more rounded short leaves. And they are both really simple to do with just a couple of strokes. The long ones are done with quite light pressure, and the length of the tip is used to create the shape, whereas the others I'm pressing harder and doing a quick motion to keep it smaller. The difference between them is quite subtle, but I do like having a little bit of variation to add more interest. Once the vine was finished, I went in with some gold watercolour paint to add some sparkles all the way around, which I think makes it feel more fairy tale and magical like. The paint I'm using is Coliro, which is one of my favourites. Their metallic paint is so good, I would definitely recommend it. I will add all the names of the products I used in this setup in the description, if I can remember them, so that if you're interested you can have a look for them wherever you are in the world. After I finished painting and the little sparkles had dried, I got my craft knife and cutting mat to remove the inner part of the wreath. I went quite close to the leaves so that there was a nice thin white edge all the way around them, and then popped out the middle. On the page underneath is where I'm adding the title. So first I put down some craft paper that I had ripped into a square shape and glued that down. Then I flipped over the wreath page to write in my title so I could line it up how I wanted. I used a Tombow fudenosuke to write hello with the tip, being very careful to keep it fine with light pressure, and then I did the 2025 in a more traditional calligraphy style, making the downstrokes thicker and keeping the upward strokes thin. Then it was time for decorating around the craft paper, and I wanted to make sure that all these elements were only visible on this page and not the front, so that there is a very different look between the 2, but that the title links both of them together. Now I start using the washi and stickers I mentioned before. This is the Whimsical Botanics design from Notebook Therapy, and oh my gosh, I love this one so much. I have a few washi sets from Notebook Therapy and they are all gorgeous, but this one is my absolute favourite that they've ever made. Everything in the washi set is so beautiful. Usually when I buy any kind of like craft or stationery set, there's maybe 1 or 2 things in it that I don't like, but all of the tapes in this one are gorgeous. They also always come in these really lovely boxes. This one is even more special with the window in the top. Oh, I love it. As I love this design so much, I also splashed out on the matching stickers. They are a mix of PET and washi tape, and again they're also beautiful and just a joy to make collages with. I've paired the washi and stickers with some old book pages because you can't go wrong with old book pages. It just complements almost any design you want to go for. I'm decorating opposite sides of the page as I don't want it to get too busy with stuff all the way around. So I'm just keeping it to opposite sides of the page, and that brings some balance to the overall look. One of the tapes in this set has lots of separate elements that are on a clear background, things like flowers, butterflies, keys, clocks, letters, etc. And I love them all in the strip, but I also wanted to be able to place them individually around the spread. So I did end up cutting each one out. Did it take a long time? Yes it did. But was it worth it? For me, also yes. There were 3 different butterflies on this tape, and they were so small and delicate that I thought they would make a really great addition to the wreath on the front page to make it even more magical. So I cut a few of those out and placed them around the edge, and I am really happy with how it turned out. My next setup is my future log, and most people do seem to include something like this in their yearly setups, but it's quite versatile and you can really make it whatever works best for you. I'm doing the same layout as I did last year, as I found it really helpful for having a simple way of viewing all the important dates at a glance. For each month, I draw out a mini calendar to allow me to see how the days fall in the week, and also add a bar down the left side to show what week of the year it is. Then underneath that, I have 3 headings. The top is events, so I add anything that's booked in for that month, like holidays, parties, weddings, etc. Then under that, I have birthdays, which is pretty self-explanatory. I just add the date and then the person whose birthday it is. Then underneath that, I've got remember, and this is just to have a space for anything else that I need to remember that isn't necessarily an event. So it could be something that happens annually, like remember the car tax is due on a certain date. Once that's all populated, when you set up each month throughout the rest of the year, you can just flick back to this page and transfer all your important dates into that month's calendar really easily. I used a green Tombow to do all the lines, and I would normally just use a black pen to fill everything in, but I decided to use a brown fine liner instead to keep the theme nice and naturey. But after I did the first one, I really wasn't sure if I liked it, but I decided to keep going and trust the process, hoping that I might like it a bit more once all the decoration was on. But even now, I'm not sure if I really do like it. I think the calendar looks okay, but below with the brown on top of the green, it's kind of giving me Shrek vibes, like kind of a bit swampy. I don't hate it, but I'm still kind of undecided. Let me know what you think in the comments. For the decoration along the top, I needed to get the title of each month in somehow, and one of the tapes are these cute little frames, and because it's a clear tape, the paper underneath shows through. So I wrote down the initial of each month and then put the frame over the top. I knew I wouldn't have space for the full word, but I think the initial worked out quite well here. There was space left in between each letter, so of course I had to fill that up with lots of pretty things. The gap in the middle was a good place for another little vine, and I couldn't use the church window along the top because there wasn't enough clear space for a letter to show through, but I really love that one, so I just stuck it there as part of the central decoration. So this page was January to June, and then the next page I did exactly the same, but for July to December. I know a lot of people only do 6 months at a time, as that's usually what fits into an average size journal, and it is the same for me, but I personally don't like having to do this all again halfway through the year. Also, quite a lot of my setups track things over a year, and if I did them 6 months at a time, then you don't end up with that full year picture. And I know that when you get to July or August, you're then sort of working in 2 journals, but it doesn't really bother me too much. But I do get why others might not want to do it that way, but I like it, and I think that's really the key to sticking with journaling, is finding what suits you and then just running with that. On to the next spread, and this one is what I call my focus page. Now, of course, different things work for different people, but if you're anything like me, then you might resonate with the feeling that the word goals holds a lot of pressure, and also sometimes the things we want are not solely within our control. So when a goal isn't achieved, it can be a bit demoralizing sometimes. So what I prefer to do in my yearly setup is to dedicate a page to things that I can focus on that will help me achieve what I want. So instead of writing down a big goal, which could be a bit overwhelming, I would break down the things I wanted to achieve into smaller areas to focus on that will help achieve the bigger goal. So even if the big goal itself isn't achieved, you've been chipping away at the elements needed so you can see that you are moving closer to that end goal and still having a sense of achievement. But equally, if you think a goal is easy or realistic, you might not want to break it down and just leave it as it is. But I feel that for me personally, the word focus takes the pressure off, but still leaves room for ambition. I'm doing this page in much the same way as the title page, using some brown paper for the background, and then collaging decorative elements in opposite corners, leaving a decent sized space to add my areas of focus for 2025 in the middle. On the adjoining page, this is where I'm going to keep track of how I'm doing with my areas of focus, and I've split it up into 4 sections. So each quarter I will do a quick review of how I'm doing. Last year I just split the year in half and reviewed at 6 months and then again at 12 months, but I felt like I needed to be a bit more frequent, just to help keep those things in mind a bit more. It can be easy to get wrapped up in the busyness of life and maybe lose sight of what your personal goals are, so I'm going with a quarterly review to keep me on track. I did my titles on brown paper and then split the page up by drawing thin vines along the centre lines and finished off the page with a few more of the tiny stickers and painted sparkles. My next page is my social media content planner. Now I have a whole separate journal that I use for my YouTube planning, but that focuses on individual videos and future ideas. This page is just to help me make a quick note of what I'm posting and when. I will then cross off when it is posted or move it to another month if things don't quite go to plan. I'm doing a small box for every month and I'll just put down what I'm posting for YouTube and Instagram. I only use those 2 platforms and honestly I struggle to keep up with Instagram. I've been taking a bit of a break from it recently, but I do hope to get back to it in the new year. I've done the same layout for the last few years and I really like it. It's pretty simple, but it does what I need it to. The extra long box I have on the right is where I note down all of my subscriber and follower milestones. So each 100 I get, I jot down there with the month, and it's quite fun to see how the account grows over time. Because there are so many boxes on this page, there's not a lot of room for decoration, so there are a few bits around the title, a gap to fill under the milestones, as I don't think I'll need the full length of the page for that, and then a small strip at the bottom that was perfect to fit a little vine doodle in. The next spread is a pretty quick one. This is my highlights page. If you're a subscriber of Jashi Corin, you might have spotted me talking about this setup in her video collab called 20 Tips for Your 2025 Planner Setup, and loads of great content creators have given their ideas for setting up a 2025 planner. It was really fun to work on and I will link it in the description if you want to check that out. But anyway, I did this page last year and I had a lot of fun with it. I'm leaving a space to print 1 Polaroid picture for each month to stick in. I have one of those printers that connects to your phone, which is really great. But if you don't have that, you could print pictures off on a computer, or you could do a little doodle, you could stick in some memorabilia that you've collected, or do a mini journal entry that sums up the month. When you get to the end of the year, you have a really beautiful snapshot of all the great things that happened. I absolutely love how my 2024 one came out, and it's one of my favourite spreads, so I had to do it again. Because of the size of the Polaroids, the only place I could fit the title in the square journal was right down the centre, and you will have already seen my mistake. For some reason I was like, yeah, I can write neatly over the join in the pages, it'll be fine. It really was not fine, it looked weird, so I did it on brown paper and stuck it over the top instead, and I really don't know why I didn't just do that in the first place, because it fits the theme really nicely, so yeah, making that mistake worked out in the end, so it's all good. But again, this page has limited space for decoration, so there are a few stickers around the title, but the only other space there will be, once all the Polaroids are stuck down, will be a narrow strip along the centre of the pages. So I just added some more vines to it to tie in with the rest of the setup. Moving on to the next page, and these two are trackers connected to health. So this first page is a period tracker. I apologize that this footage is a little bit out of focus. I don't know what was going on with my camera, but it does improve in a minute. But yes, I've been including a period tracker since I started bullet journaling, and I found it helpful because it makes me want to fill it out. Before, I would quite often forget to note down when I came on, and then I wouldn't always know when exactly to expect the next one, or if I thought I was a bit late, I would freak out a little bit because I didn't have a record of exactly when the last one was. So since I've been using this tracker, I've been a lot better at keeping on top of it. So as you can see, I do a table with 1 to 31 down the left side and the months along the top, and I will colour in the boxes for each month when I'm on my period. At the bottom, I coloured in the boxes green that weren't in that month, but I messed it up. May does have 31 days, so I just cut out a tiny piece of the dot grid paper and stuck over the top so that the date was still usable if I needed it. And I also got February wrong, but I corrected that later. There was a little more space for decoration here, and again I made some collages and incorporated the vines. I experimented with drawing a little fern frond and then putting one of those frame stickers over the top so it showed through, and that was quite cute. The next spread is a weight tracker, and I did this one last year, and I feel like it did help me with eating more sensibly, as I could see the impact each week and realise what I was doing right or wrong. Not that I eat a lot of junk or anything, but I'm definitely a stress eater, so when I'm anxious or stressed I will snack more. It helps me to be more mindful and make better choices. Now, body weight is a very individual thing, and I'm not at all suggesting that everyone should do this. It's something that I feel is helpful for me to stay healthy and might be helpful for others if they're interested in doing the same thing, but everyone is different and different things work for different people, and I wouldn't want anyone to feel like this is something they had to do if they weren't already considering it. So anyway, the way I've done this one is to have all the weeks of the year in the table, and then next to that have a column for my weight, and then a column for any comments I might want to make, like if I was stressed out that week or if I was on my period, as those things can definitely affect it. And at the bottom I have my target weight, which could be a goal to reach or something to maintain, and then underneath is a space for weight at the end of the year. I'm not gonna lie, that might end up being a couple of weeks before the end of the year because Christmas and you know, 'tis the season to eat lots of chocolate. The next one is a new page for me, and it is to track my savings. I'm keeping it simple by doing a grid with the months of the year down the left side. Along the top, I am adding 3 columns. One will be for my regular savings, so I plan to transfer a regular amount into my savings via a direct debit or a transfer, and I know I will always save X amount each month. It could be a really small amount, like £5 or £10, dollars, euros, etc. And then, you know, something will be saved every month, and that can change with your circumstances throughout the year. So you could be transferring 20 a month until May, and then you might get a pay rise and you decide you can afford 30 a month, or it might go the other way. Next to that, I've got an extra column, so anything I can afford that's in addition to my regular amount will go there. Some months it might be nothing, and that's okay because I've still saved my regular amount. Then the box on the end is just the total for each month. And just thinking about it now, I didn't actually add a yearly total on the bottom, so I might try and fit that in later somewhere if I can find a space for it. The next page is for a wish list. I tried this a couple of years ago and I just didn't fill it out, so I didn't do one last year, but there were a few occasions where I thought, oh, I should add this thing to a list, and then didn't really have an appropriate list to put it onto. So this is intended for items that aren't immediately required, so not like a grocery list or anything, but things that are needed at some point. So I've got one for things that I need, and one for things that I want. And also I've added a key at the bottom this time, which I think will be helpful, particularly for the need list. I'm using a triangle for high priority items, a circle for medium, and a square for low priority. So I will add the most appropriate symbol by the item in the list so that I know what I'm aiming for with my savings. And then when I've got them, I will just put a line through it. My next spread is a really fun one that I loved filling out last year, and it is a media tracker. I did it as a bookcase last year and it looked so cute, so I wanted to do the same again, but I'm doing an arched top to it this time to change it up a little bit. I'm using a brown Crayola pen to do the frame, and it is impossible to be neat and not go over what you've already drawn, making darker patches here and there, but I've just tried to use that to my advantage and make it look a bit like wood grain. Each shelf will represent a different format, and I'm drawing the outline of book spines so that they can be filled in when I consume some kind of media. The top shelf is for video games, and I didn't play as many as I was expecting to last year, so I put them at the top because the arch means I can fit fewer books in, and then hopefully I have more of a chance of filling that up. The next one down is for books, and I had been in a reading slump for a while, but last year I decided to try audiobooks and I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to try and do more this year. I've just been downloading books so far, but I was wondering about maybe trying an Audible subscription in 2025. I'm not quite sure. If you are an audiobook listener, let me know whether Audible is a good idea or if there's anything else you'd recommend. And also if you have any really good book recommendations. I really enjoy fantasy and sci-fi, and I like comedy as well. Just fun stories, nothing too harrowing. The next shelf down is for TV series, and I've left gaps in the top 3 shelves for stickers, but the bottom one is for movies, and I'm more likely to fill that one up, so no gaps on that shelf. Last year when I was filling these out, I just started to fill in the books going from left to right, but I ended up having quite a few blanks at the end because I didn't watch as much as I had allowed for. So I think what I'm going to do this year is I will probably try and write things in randomly all over the shelves to start with, and then just fill in the gaps as I go. And if I end up not filling up all the gaps, I will either colour in or stick some washi tape over the blank ones, so then the shelves don't look empty and it'll look really cute. The stickers that I'm using here came with the washi set, and they are the perfect size to go on these shelves and are such good little curiosities that I would love to have on a bookshelf at home. As the setup itself will look quite busy when it's all filled out, I decided to just do vines and sparkles trailing down from the top to decorate this setup. Now for the final spread of this setup, and it's another fun one. Last year I made a 24 things in 2024 spread, and it's supposed to encourage having fun or trying new things. It's really not supposed to be goals or anything, but just fun things to try, a new recipe or taking a short class or something like that. I did find for me that 24 things was too much, so I haven't gone for 25 things in 2025, but I went for 20 to keep it more manageable. And to keep with my theme, the 20 things will be written on leaves of a vine. Each big white leaf will have some small thing written in it as something I've done or something I want to try and do this year. It's a really fun layout, and I'll just try to write really small to get all the information into each leaf, but it should be okay. Also, if I don't manage to do 20 things, I can then colour in any of the blank ones left over towards the end of the year. And apart from a few blank pages that I leave behind this one so that I can add any additional setups if I need to as the year goes on, that is my 2025 planner ready to go. I really love how it turned out. All the washi and the stickers are so pretty, and I love the green vine doodles. Not sure which one is my favourite. Maybe the media page, maybe the front cover, I'm not sure. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe it's given you a few ideas. Please feel free to leave a comment to let me know what you think or what setups you are going to include in your journal this year. Thank you so much for watching, and please do leave a like and a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more art and craft and bullet journals. Thanks again, bye!